Football in India has a history that reaches back to the mid-19th century, when British soldiers first brought the game to the subcontinent. What started as a colonial pastime soon began to spread among locals, thanks in large part to the efforts of Nagendra Prasad Sarbadikari, who is often remembered as the father of Indian football. The game found fertile ground in Indian soil, especially in Calcutta, where British administrative and military presence was strong. By 1888, the growing interest in football prompted the founding of the Durand Cup in Shimla by Mortimer Durand, then Foreign Secretary of British India. Originally intended as a recreational tournament for British troops, the Durand Cup would go on to become the third oldest football competition in the world, preceded only by the English FA Cup and the Scottish Cup. In its inaugural year, the Royal Scots Fusiliers claimed victory, narrowly defeating the Highland Light Infantry 2-1 in the final. Just 5 years later, in 1893, another milestone was reached with the establishment of the IFA Shield, the fourth oldest trophy in global football. The first club to take shape was Calcutta FC, formed in 1872. While early reports indicate it began as a rugby club, it gradually shifted its attention to football by 1894. Soon after, in 1889, a historic club named Mohun Bagan Athletic Club came into existence under the name Mohun Bagan Sporting Club. What made Mohun Bagan unique was not just its status as an army-affiliated club, but the fact that it welcomed players from both Hindu and Muslim backgrounds, a reflection of football's unifying power. In those early years, Calcutta saw a flurry of new clubs, including Sova Bazar, Aryan Club, and Mohammedan Sporting Club, which was founded in 1891. As India stepped into the 20th century, the sport blossomed further. More clubs emerged, more cups were contested, and Indian players increasingly dominated the scene. A defining moment came in 1911 when Mohun Bagan defeated the East Yorkshire Regiment 2-1 in the IFA Shield final. For the first time, an Indian team triumphed over a British regiment in a major national competition, and this victory ignited national pride and positioned football as a sport of political and cultural significance. By the 1920s and 1930s, Indian football was beginning to look beyond its borders. In 1924, an Indian team comprising both Indian and British players embarked on their first international tour under the leadership of the legendary Gosth Paul. By the late 1930s, teams made up entirely of Indian players were traveling and competing in Australia, Japan, Indonesia, and Thailand. Although records of the earliest international matches remain patchy, a notable milestone was the 1933 match against Ceylon, present-day Sri Lanka, where India secured a 1-0 win under Gosthapal's captaincy. A few years later, on July 4, 1936, India played out a 1-1 draw against a visiting Chinese team in Calcutta. Following the growing popularity of Indian clubs abroad, the All India Football Federation, AIFF, was formally established in 1937. India's first real taste of a global football stage came at the 1948 London Olympics. A largely barefoot Indian team captured the attention and admiration of spectators despite their 2-1 loss to France. They missed 2 penalty opportunities, but it was their courage and style of play that won hearts. When asked about their barefootedness, Indian captain Talamaran Ao famously quipped, "Well, you see, we play football in India whereas you play bootball." The remark, laced with wit and pride, made headlines across London, while Sarangapani Raman etched his name in history as the scorer of India's first international goal at the Olympics. In 1950, India qualified for the FIFA World Cup in Brazil, not by winning matches, but because all other teams in their qualifying group withdrew. However, India pulled out of the tournament just before it began. Though the official explanation cited travel expenses, FIFA had actually offered to cover those costs. For decades, rumors persisted that India withdrew because FIFA prohibited barefoot play. Yet, team captain Sailen Mana later clarified that wasn't the reason. It seems the real cause was that Indian officials considered the Olympics a more prestigious platform than the World Cup at the time. India has not qualified for a World Cup since. Most recently, during the 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifiers, India exited in the second round after a 2-1 loss to Qatar. Despite skipping the World Cup and shunning qualifiers until 1985, the period from 1951 to 1964 is often remembered as Indian football's golden era. Under the visionary coaching of Syed Abdul Rahim, India emerged as a dominant force in Asia. The golden run began at the 1951 Asian Games held in New Delhi, where India defeated Iran 1-0 in the final to win the gold medal. Sahu Mawala's goal sealed that historic victory. However, the next year at the 1952 Helsinki Olympics, India was unprepared for the freezing conditions and suffered a 10-1 thrashing at the hands of Yugoslavia. The loss prompted AIFF to make boots mandatory in international matches. In the years that followed, India bounced back by winning the Asian Quadrangular Football Tournament 4 times between 1952 and 1955. Although they failed to advance past the group stage in the 1954 Asian Games in Manila, the 1956 Melbourne Olympics marked their greatest achievement. India reached the semi-finals, eventually finishing 4th after losing to Bulgaria in the bronze medal match. The standout performer was Neville de Souza, who scored a stunning hat-trick against Australia in the quarterfinals, the first ever by an Asian player in Olympic history. India's strong form continued. At the 1958 Asian Games in Tokyo, they reached the bronze medal match but lost to Indonesia. In 1959, they were runners-up at the Merdeka tournament in Malaysia. Though they missed qualification for the 1960 AFC Asian Cup, redemption came in 1962 when India clinched another gold medal at the Asian Games by beating South Korea 2-1 in the final. In 1964, India automatically qualified for the AFC Asian Cup after their group opponents withdrew. They finished as runners-up, narrowly losing to hosts Israel. It remains India's best performance in the tournament to this day. However, the decline began soon after. In the 1966 Asian Games, India couldn't progress beyond the group stage. A brief resurgence came in 1970 when India claimed the bronze medal after beating Japan. But the 1974 Games were a disaster. They lost all 3 matches and conceded 14 goals. A modest improvement came in 1978, though they still fell in the second round. The 1982 tournament showed some promise as India reached the quarterfinals. In 1984, India returned to the AFC Asian Cup for the first time in 20 years, but finished last in their group, managing only a goalless draw against Iran. Even as Indian football lost its continental clout, it remained the dominant force in South Asia. India won gold at the South Asian Games in both 1985 and 1987. The 1990s opened on a high note with victory in the inaugural SAF Championship in 1993, alongside a silver medal at the South Asian Games that same year. Under the leadership of Baichung Bhutia, India reached its highest ever FIFA ranking, 94th, in February 1996. They closed the 20th century by clinching the SAF Championship again in 1997 and 1999, affirming their supremacy in the region.